Welcome to Energy X Ventures, the podcast where we discuss with energy innovators, startups, industry experts, visionaries, and policymakers. Today we have a very exciting topic, which is nothing less than the end game of energy. And for this interesting discussion, I'm really happy to have Ed Hesse with me. Ed, among many other ventures that he created, currently is the co-founder and CEO of Grid Singularity. Ed, great to have you on board.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, Pierre.
Great. We have a very amazing topic today, which is nothing less than the Energy Endgame. But before we dive into the topic, I think it would be fantastic if you can give us a brief about your background and what brought you into crypto, and then what brought you from crypto into the mission to revolutionize the energy world.
Well, thanks. I'm a mechanical engineer by education. I had a classical career in corporates in the energy market itself. So started as an engineer and then ending up 12 years later in management, and mostly on the vendor side. So not on utility, not a grid operator, but those guys which deliver the hardware, install the power plants, make them, build the control systems. And seeing the energy market from this side, we kind of created the problems, where we are in right now. And then, going out of this market is like, that's how we came up. Like, we need to open up this market. And, then stumbling over crypto in 2012, that was like, this technology could be a possible solution. And that's how we dropped in, then did a lot of research with the Ethereum founders, and then launched the Energy Web Foundation to create it. That was kind of the first step, because energy market culture and crypto culture is completely different, and they run at two different speeds. The crypto culture is like, we always say like we live in dog years, 1 month. I often hear this saying, it's like, we now have April, and people say like, this is so February, come on, where are you? in energy market, to finalize a negotiation for a power plant or install something, it can take a year or 2 or 3, and then, building this thing, so this is snail speed. And so we're wandering between these two worlds. And it was clear from the beginning, it will take a while to push this market into this new culture. Quick innovation, fast iterations, learning, breaking, going forward, and so the first step was creating a kind of the smallest common denominator was the Energy Web Foundation. We were building up this the first 3 years, and then we operationalized that with an own team, which is now working around the globe with TSOs and governments. And they basically work like Red Hat and Linux. So they help large corporations to install the open source stack. And what I'm focusing on right now with my team is Grid Singularity. We build exchanges. This kind of leads to the energy endgame, because, if you imagine a super liquid energy market where anyone can participate, everyone will ask the question, where will prices go, right? And I'm not sure if this is the right question to ask, but the end game is super high liquidity availability of energy anywhere to any assets. That's the end game. Now the question is, how will it look like, and who will be dominating it? To be honest, I'm personally hoping nobody will be dominating it, but maybe and it will run on a decentralized platform, because someone dominating it will be very dangerous. Anyways, then we can come into philosophical discussions. What is more important, internet or security of supply? Let's say it like this.
Yeah, indeed. And if you say, you just mentioned like we created the problems ourselves in the energy market. What are you referring to?
Yes. So, from vendor side, if your incentive is to sell as much hardware as possible, and then and this is the classical behavior in every company, I would say, like in the old paradigm, is if you want to sell a product, you want to sell a product in a way that the person, comes back to you again, if the product breaks or the product needs an upgrade and so forth. And so you immediately start to think, how you want to reduce your sales efforts by designing the product. So, so you want to lock in the client. And the classical procedure doing this is you write your own communication protocols, you write your own specifications, your own standards, and so forth. You want your standard to dominate in the market. And so on, everybody does it, and then we end up with 300 communication protocols in the energy market. Everyone has their own stuff, If somebody wants to enhance their control system, it's they have to pay a lot of licenses to the former vendor, it's to open up protocols. So this creating gates is kind of at the core of the current DNA making business. It's kind of baked into capitalism. This type of behavior, and that's why this created problems. And to overcome this, we have to utilize the new tools in crypto where it's about the ecosystem, where the product is open, where the unique, the USP is the connectivity, is the network, is not is not the software, but it's just the connection of the people. That is the USP, and which is a complete different USP than before, right? Before you build one piece and you sell it one, you want to sell it again. But here it's that you have this connection established, and there can be much more data transfer through this. The connection is more important than the product that flows over the connection. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, and how is Grid Singularity fitting in that space? What's the solution you envision or that you provide?
Yeah. So if you look at energy markets are kind of divided in two different type of markets. One is kind of the heavily regulated markets, which is all about security of supply, balance, frequency, grid-related markets in general, flexibility and balancing markets. And those are heavily regulated because, of course, this is national security. Someone needs to be responsible for that, accountable. And then you have the open markets. But if you look at the open markets, you would think like it sounds already like open markets, anyone can participate. Not really, because in open markets we have globally 33 energy exchanges. 33. I think in crypto we have 8,000 since the last 4 years. So we have 33 exchanges around the globe, which are the open markets. You can trade futures, you can trade financial products, or just energy blocks, which at the end is just playing Tetris. So you fill up your demand and then you run it down. And so you have these two markets. And now the grid markets, they are actually creating the rules how the other side of the market is reporting. Because whatever these markets do on this open side, they create the imbalance so that these guys have to balance it, or congestion or whatever. So these guys are creating the rules, and it was fantastic. The game, this rule for itself was great at the beginning of the unbundling of the market, 2000. So for the first 15 years it was fantastic, but now we have come to a point where the physical infrastructure is decentralizing itself. At that time, this design was done where everything was centralized and not many participants. Still in Germany, we have, I don't know, I think less than 200 traders. And my bet would be in whole Europe we don't have more than 1,000 traders, but I don't know the exact number. And so. But now the physical kind of infrastructure is changing. Everything is becoming so cheap. Electrical vehicles are taking the world. There is so many flexibility coming in, meaning we're looking at a future where we will have millions of traders. Now, this system is not fit for that. And specifically, then keeping in mind, how do we control the grid and how do we keep the stability in there? So the only way this is possible is we have to kind of marry these two worlds together and make it a fractal that is, we have to learn from nature, where everything is like built up of small pieces, fractalized, and by this infrastructure, it's more resilient and so forth. And so that's exactly the same thing that we build at Energy Grid. We have reverse engineered grid-related markets and open markets, spot markets, made it a fractal so that we can now place markets according to grid topography. And you have low voltage, medium voltage, high voltage. Once we place the markets according to grid infrastructure, then you can shoot bids and asks into an exchange wherever you are, together with attributes. Attributes like, I want to trade with a person right next to me. I want to buy or sell. I want to buy only PV, or I want to trade only with my brother. So you can create social networks even. So, and these attributes, so that your bids and asks are directed to someone. It's very critical, because you need to know how is it connecting in the grid line. And the only way how this can be connected is if you have the markets according to grid infrastructure. And then, each of those markets, of course, needs to give access to the aggregator, who is translating kind of these degrees of freedom of the exchange to the final consumer, of which, to my opinion, there is still too little on the market, too little innovators, because it, the green comps, the GridX, iLeco, Spectral, Tesla. So they're all the vendors, home automation companies. They are the future utilities. And then on the other side, you need to create an access and control kind of possibility for grid operators, so that they can actually control the grid in a much more granular state. If you talk to grid operators these days and you ask them, guys, how good actually do you know your grid? The TSOs, they are kings. They know everything. In Germany, they have maybe 1,200 connection points. They measure everything in real time. They know what's going on. If you go to the DSOs, go medium voltage, like, if you go on low voltage, they're flying blind and they don't know what's happening. Now, if you bring this market design that we are developing, what will happen is, you will be able to visualize energy flows and behavior at lower voltages. And as the market, the physical infrastructure is developing further, and you have more and more storage capacities at the endpoints, you will eventually have enough storage capacity to balance locally. So to balance the grid from bottom up, And of course, this will happen all in parallel. You will still have the big responsible parties that are taking care from the top on balancing the market, but then it will eventually also happen from the bottom up.
Okay, interesting. I mean, how would that look like if I'm a consumer and let's say 5-10 years down the road, I use Grid Singularity solutions? What's your experience?
You will not experience. You will not get in touch with us. That's the first point. Right. So we believe at the core of this market design is price finding. Is everything should make economic sense. Everything should be driven economically, except eventual, grid lines and so forth. So still, because there will be cases, where there is a few people only living far away, and you need to connect them. Except generation becomes so cheap that they don't want even to be connected. So, and we build exchanges. We build this market design. We build it in open source, and the first thing we build is a simulation environment for testing for communities, for grid operators, and so forth. And we run hackathons. We invite data scientists to develop trading algorithms. We have aggregators at those hackathons and grid operators. We put bounties at the hackathons to break the system. And every time we see something breaking, we enhance it. And so far, it has been working out fairly well. So at the end, how will it look to you as an end consumer is exactly like the mobile phone looks right now to you. You have a home, and maybe let's start with a standard low profile home. What we have right now. Standard low profile basically means, to those people which don't know what that is, if you have a standard flat and you have no generation, you're just a consumer, then in the utilities eye today, you are a standard load. So according to the people, how many people live in the home and so forth. And so in a standard load environment, standard load profile environment, let's imagine you go into MediaMarkt, or it's like kind of electronic shop, and you want to buy something that is consuming a lot of energy and is flexible, it has an API. So, and the market design that we propose is there. You scan this thing, you say like, okay, this device, let's say an oven, or a wash machine. Let's take a wash machine. You scan the wash machine, and you would at the same time receive kind of the flexibility attributes of this wash machine. How fast can you turn it on? You can control it on, off. I mean, nowadays, nearly everything has an API or its own app, even the toothbrush, So, and you could pre-simulate this asset into your home, and this simulation could give you an idea what would be the lifetime cost, life cycle cost of this assets in terms of energy. Now go a step further, think about a storage. You could immediately know how much money this would make. Now, we're already doing this in our test. I'm in Berlin here, so we're doing this test with electric vehicles. A Model 3 income here in Berlin at current prices would make income of approximately 4,000 euro per year. Meaning that is completely, so meaning the effect will be every consumer, every household will be interested to buy something intelligent because it either reduces the cost or even starts to make money. Everything gets a return on investment curve. So that is the difference, And if you have kids and they're moving out, they go to study, you will send them free electricity. You will pay their bills, and maybe. So you will be just much more. You will be your own utility. But you won't be sitting there on your mobile phone and trading and buy, sell, buy, sell, buy, sell. This will be an algorithm. This will be a simple trading algorithm. And many people still think this is sci-fi, but 70-80% of the whole financial sector runs on algorithms. In the financial sector, this is standard. You can buy trading bots even for free. They're open source out there.
Yeah.
And in energy, it's much more simple because the markets are always the same according to, sun is there, wind is there, but it's a repeating cycle. It's an ideal ground for AI to learn patterns and trade on your behalf. All that it needs to know is, where do you want to trade? With who do you want to trade? And so forth. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. I mean, did you have any experience with like either the modeling of it or maybe some sandbox environments where you tested out how the effect on sandbox communities would be if they trade among themselves?
Absolutely. Let me just maybe I just show it to you. Do you see the screen?
Yeah.
So this is the homepage d3a.io, and this is the open source simulator. So in this simulation environment, this is being used by communities and researchers. And so here we see kind of all the communities around the globe that are running simulations. And some of these simulations are actually live running exchanges, which we call the Canary Network. So it's based on real data that connect the assets are connected through an aggregator, but it's still play money. Because in most jurisdictions, this market design, of course, is not legal yet. So usually the story is you're a community, and so let's take this community in Sweden, and so this is already set up. I told you, it has a hierarchy. The markets have a hierarchy. One round thing is a market, and a market can have multiple exchanges. So this market has a spot exchange. Then we have South Sweden, is this also a spot exchange, and the market are placed according to grid topography. So Siemens is a rather small village. Let's see if we have, so this is Siemens here, and there is a neighbor village, which is connected to the higher voltage. You can see it. And those two villages are connected through a high voltage line. And that's how the market structure is set up. See, those markets are stacked below each other. You can even place a market inside a house if the house has intelligent assets. And then setting up such a community with assets is fairly it's fairly simple. It's drag and drop. I can add another community PV here or storage. This kind of this is a PV. And there are standard panels, but you can upload your own profiles. It's fairly open. Anything is open here. And then I need to give it a location. It's not necessary. And then I go and kick off the simulation. What's happening right now is all those agents that were modeled into the markets have a template trading strategy. So it's a fairly simple thing. Start high and low, or if you want to buy, start low and high. And this is not AI enhanced. And all these agents start to trade against each other very egoistically, just to fulfill their specific KPI. And in this simulation or in any simulation, you can then go into each market and see how is each market performing for itself. What's the self-sufficiency, self-consumption? How are the sub-agents are trading to each other? Storage, how is the village performing below? Now let's go into Siemens. We can look at this at very detailed level, the balances. This is, for example, the balance at Siemens, where we see who is trading with who, at what prices. Now we have a double Dutch auction inside. That's why the prices are hidden. This is the grid fee. And in the simulation, of course, the order book is open so that the simulation and the data, you can download the data afterwards. This is used by data scientists to train their algorithms. That's why the order book is open in the simulation. You can even go into the houses, and let's go into this house, and you can see, how is the trading strategy of the battery performing actually. So you see its state of charge is going up, selling. You can compare this with other storages and see are they performing right or could it be better and so forth. And now this is the beginning, and then from here the fun starts, because you can actually go inside and while the simulation runs, and you can say, how would everything look like if I make this PV bigger? Then nope, no, I can't do this now. You would usually trigger an event, and then you could see how stuff happens. You can duplicate the simulation. Let me check if I can do this now. You can duplicate the simulation, change something, and then compare results. So you can go through scenarios, and you can easily come to the result. What would be the most ideal setup that everyone is kind of having the best economical outcome, and then see how the homes are performing. You set it up, you get a rational, does it make sense? You externalize it for optimization, and then a click away, you can launch it. And then the last step, of course, pending regulatory adoption, can we make this a reality? So on the way there, we want to break it, enhance it, set bounties. That is a complete new culture, than what we have seen before. We see a lot of vendors actually creating accounts here, testing, downloading the software, forking the software from GitHub. We're happy about it, because it triggers something, because it immediately probably makes a feeling like, oh, this is competition, and we need to do something, because at the end, the fight right now or kind of in future will not be about the revenue, but about the ecosystem. Who has the biggest ecosystem and is the fastest to evolve and upgrade. And this can only be done in cooperation, with open source stack. Yeah.
So would you be able to combine a few of these communities into VPPs then, basically, and manage them again on the bigger exchanges? Or how would that play out?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So there is, we need liquidity providers, and liquidity provider in this sense would be classically a wholesale exchange. Mm-hmm. And so of course we can have a connection between the wholesale exchange and local markets. And to interconnect community is exactly the same. You just place a market in a higher hierarchy.
Okay. Now you said in the beginning this is to a certain extent still a complementary product, or let's say a complementary problem that you solve with that. But if this would really be mass adopted and implemented, how would the role change for classic energy trading companies and for the exchanges, and then for the classic utilities that are still very much asset heavy companies?
Well, please define classic asset utility. What is to your opinion the most biggest single KPI of a classic utility?
I would say one is the number of retail customers that they provide power to.
Amount of clients, then I would probably in my language translate the KPI here: produce cheap, sell high, right? To as many people as possible, or as much volume as possible, right? Now, this thing, produce cheap, sell high, will be done by an algorithm. So the marginal cost goes against zero there. And, it's exactly the same that is happening in crypto. We started with centralized exchanges, and then we had the decentralized exchanges with incentives to liquidity providers. And you have a gazillion of trading bot providers like Hummingbot and other companies where you can easily download them for free, just connect. And so this is going against zero. The trading itself is not the USP anymore. So in this classical utility, if it doesn't add other services around it, I don't think this is a USP for sure. Selling those AIs, or those frameworks for trading, this is something we see a lot of startups around this. Rebase, Inspire Trading, and a bunch of others that are now growing quite fast. And some of their biggest clients, of course, are right now the trading desks, the big trading desks. But as you start to open up the markets, those trading algorithms will start to become a commodity. Mm-hmm. Now, for asset owners, and you know the trend. All the large companies, they all start to split assets, services. Mm-hmm. Exactly what's happening at Engie or all the other large. It totally makes sense because it will be completely different type of business. If you have assets, assets is and then comes again the vendor experience inside. What do all vendors, asset producers, operation maintenance? They want to make it easier for you, but then you still have the financing of the assets around it too. And that is, utilities that have a lot of assets, they have this competence of how to set up the financing, how to operate, and so forth. And this is a capability for itself, and how to market them, of course, on all possible markets. So this will be for sure also digitized as much as possible. But this is a complete own business field. And this business field is exactly what's happening at the endpoint, the final consumer. The story I told you, when you go into this electrical shop, you're doing exactly the same action. You're thinking, I want to buy this asset or this asset. Well, you check the lifetime cost, or the energy cost, or the revenue. It's exactly the same action. It's just in a much smaller scale, right? And now when we talk to all these service providers, which kind of solve the pain points like balancing group, BRP reporting, accounting, and all those things that are necessary to balance the grid. If you ask these guys in Europe, who are your next clients? It's the Envisions, it's the Teslas, it's all the vendors, SMAs. They're all starting right now because they see they can provide more than just the assets. They can participate, in their assets lifetime kind of cycle time with more services.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, great. So, and we spoke about regulator a bit, but the regulator will probably be the biggest obstacle to getting this off the ground in the different geographies. So, what's your view there? Are they moving? Are there obstacles?
The biggest mover we see right now in Europe is the EU Commission. The EU Green Deal. They're pushing very hard, and now it's up to the countries to adopt this. Another push is the energy communities, which make more and more pressure on local level to open up the regulation. And it will happen exactly like in the landline mobile phone business, where you have a green field, they just take the economically best, and then you have the best examples. Yeah. And at one point in time, there will be breakthrough. And I don't think the breakthrough will wait with another 10 years. I think we are not far away from it. We see some first countries, Spain, Italy, Greece, already opening up where they are now implementing rules that if you can prove that you trade in a specific vicinity, a few hundred meters or 2 kilometers, you only pay part of the grid. That is, that is triggering the first very interesting thing, which is if you trade locally, it's cheaper. You pay less for the grid, and that's already the beginning of the, where our market design can already help a lot. Now the biggest question that is, kind of the most critical question is when you would say, why, why are we building this? At the same time, we are convinced that no single company like us, or not even Google, will be able to push such a market design so that it can be adopted on a national scale, right? Why? Is simple, because it's one trusted entity to run a full, exchanges for a whole country. No way, that will never be accepted. And so this discussion is really interesting, because how to push such a market design, from which perspective? And there, I believe the only way to push out such market design is, you need the consensus of the market participants, which are in urgent need of such market design, which to my opinion are the energy communities and the DSOs. And the DSOs are more and more experiencing congestion problems. Communities want peer-to-peer, but peer-to-peer might do more congestion. So bringing those together and, in some form of institute, some form of entity which would operate those markets, I think this is a possible way. And ideally non-profit, this is a possible way, right? And then there is a lot of interesting crypto tools as well, because ideally those markets at one point in time are running similar to Uniswap, decentralized, where you take the transaction fee and you put the transaction fee into a pot, into another token, maybe like Uni, and this pot is there to fund this entity, or to give out incentives to whoever necessary, And another interesting thing is you can run such a business model under a non-profit umbrella, and now try to explain this in the old school energy market. This is just it's like no way.
Yeah,
no way.
Good luck.
But if you tell them then again that the crypto market, which is fairly young, was dominated by centralized exchanges until 1.5 years ago. And then the decentralized exchanges creators, they figured out, the biggest problem is liquidity. Okay, then why don't we distribute the transaction fee of this decentralized exchange to liquidity providers? And bam, 1 year later, we have more liquidity on decentralized exchanges than on centralized exchanges. That is true innovation, And once we can, we have, we witness currently this happening. So that's why, I'm convinced we can put it into energy market. Okay. It will take again a few more years, but
yeah, for sure. But in terms of, physical obstacles, how's the are there any requirements for this on smart meters or kind of behind the meter measurement?
Yeah.
Data to flow?
Yeah. This is an old problem, right? At least from kind of crypto perspective. In the energy market, it's a new problem. But in crypto we call it the Oracle problem. Yeah. What is the data source? How trustful is it, and so forth? And many countries, rolled out fairly fast. We are fairly slow in Germany because we're really good at discussing. And yeah, the thing is, when you try to make a standard into an oracle, it's really hard, because it's really hard to in this discussion to incentivize for higher security, but at the same time you want to have the device as cheap as possible going out, right? Mm-hmm. And then there is a shadow world popping up where you have a lot of innovation happening on the aggregation side around kind of disaggregation devices, something that you can clamp on that is measuring electricity without intrusion to the cable. And other devices, smart plugs, and anything that is coming out smartly there, which is already measuring by far more exact than any smart meter at a high, at a much higher frequency. Now, and there again, of course, there will be countries where you say like, no, we will only allow this, the oracles they need to be certified oracles. And then there will be countries, where they don't have the luxury to keep such a discussion, because, they probably have a bigger problem of, because of outages, I'm talking about developing countries, and they'll open it up and to any type of devices. So if I would be the one to bet on this or the other one, which will be win, I would bet on the open one, because what's happening, it's kind of, if you open up a market design where you have a lot of different oracles and mistakes starts to happen, you will see the mistakes immediately. And then you can solve such a problem actually financially. It's like on an exchange. If you want to trade on an exchange and you want to trade anonymously, you don't want to reveal your identity. What do? Well, you put the money. That's why there are exchanges. You put the money at the beginning at the table, right? And then you trade only at what you have. You don't get into minus. So it can be exactly the same in the energy markets. If you want to trade, regardless how small you are, you need to put a deposit there. If you deliver wrong data and so forth, you lose your deposit. You're being penalized. So there is this possibility as well to solve with wrong data input.
So similar, like a kind of a proof of stake.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, it would not be the first time that a developing country is actually leapfrogging mass adoption of some technology.
Yeah, it makes, because, why are they leapfrogging? Because it's cheaper. It's economically simpler, I just bought, didn't unpack it yet, but it's there, a Starlink, a satellite for internet. I get it here now. And it's faster than the landline I have here in Berlin, because the internet in Berlin is not really good. So it's like, you think like this is coming, and as they shoot up satellites all the time, in 3-4 years, they say they will have speed up to 10 gigabyte per second. Why would anyone else again put any cable into the ground?
Yeah.
With this coming, this is unbelievable. Yeah.
Very fascinating discussion, and it's a really interesting end game for the energy markets. So I'm really curious on which region will move first. So last question for us for today would be, if people are excited about what you just mentioned, and if they're excited about the energy transition, and in particular maybe that sweet spot between crypto and energy, what's your advice? How should they get involved? How can they get started?
There's a very similar advice. So we are doubling our team this year. So, and this is about another 40 positions that we're hiring. Please go on gridsingularity.com. Follow us on LinkedIn. We'll be shooting out a lot of different positions on the economic researchers and software developer space. Other than that, just type in energy blockchain and try to participate wherever possible. Yeah.
Great. We also put a link down below so people can find that. So Ed, thanks so much for your time. It was really interesting.
Yeah.
And goodbye to Berlin.
Thanks a lot.